On the prequel to the 31st episode, we're learning about Banned Books Week and previewing Where the Wild Things Are. Welcome back to the one of the prequel episodes, prequel to the 31st episode of This Film Is Lit, movie where we talk about movies that are based on books. We're in the midst of our Harry Potter run, but we're taking a break this week so that we have time to read Order of the Phoenix, because it's a long one.
A little bit.
And we did a nice short one here, and it coincides with Banned Books Week. So let's jump right in with that. And we're doing learning things with This Film Is Lit, Banned Books Week.
No matter what anybody tells you, words and ideas can change the world.
Okay, so we talked a bit about banned books in the Perks of Being a Wallflower prequel. Mm-hmm. It's also a frequently challenged book, so that was relevant. But since this next main episode falls during Banned Books Week, I really wanted to come back to that topic and talk about it a little more.
Yeah.
So Banned Books Week 2018 is September 23rd to the 29th, so that'll be next week.
Yep. Which is when the episode will come out.
Yes.
The main episode.
So first thing I kind of want to do is clarify my terms and talk about what I mean when I say banned or challenged books. So when a book is challenged, that means that an individual or more likely a group has attempted to get that book removed from a school or a library, or has attempted to restrict access to that book in some way. And when a book is banned, that means that whoever challenged it succeeded and that book has been removed from shelves.
Yes.
So Banned Books Week is an awareness campaign, but it's also a celebration of the librarians and the teachers and everyone else who kind of fights the good fight against censorship. Books are continually challenged, but because of those efforts, the majority of them remain available.
Yeah.
Banned Books Week was launched in the 1980s, which was a pretty conservative time period in America's history.
Yeah, definitely.
And it was also a time that saw increased challenges to material that was perceived as being inappropriate in some way. 1982 also saw the court case Island Trees School District versus Pico, in which a Supreme Court ruling noted that the First Amendment limits the power of school boards to remove books from school libraries based just on their content. And that same year, banned books were showcased at the American Booksellers Association trade show in Anaheim. They had like a setup at the entrance to the convention center with these giant padlocked metal cages, and then they filled them up with different books that had been challenged, and a big sign that cautioned people that those books were dangerous. And something that you see a lot now, kind of like in libraries set up that kind of display. Yeah. But it was kind of the first time people had really started talking about it. So that demonstration really sparked a conversation, and the official Banned Books Week kind of grew from there. So those who challenge and try to ban books are often parent groups, religious groups, other morality type groups.
They usually have the name family
family is a code word.
Name. Family.
So there are a lot of different reasons that these groups might cite as for why a book should be removed from shelves. But if you kind of take a look at those reasons, they usually fall under three kind of broad categories. Okay. So I'm going to go through those categories.
Cool.
So a first category is if the book contains information that the group doesn't want freely available. So for example, books about sex education are frequently challenged. One of the top 10 most challenged books in 2017,
so recently,
very recently, was Sex is a Funny Word by Corey Silverberg, with some groups stating that they believed it would lead children to ask questions about sex.
Oh, we cannot have that.
Can't have that.
Oh, man.
Can't have people knowing things.
And asking questions. Get out of town.
Our second category is if the book expresses ideas that the group considers dangerous or unacceptable. Another book from 2017's top 10 list was The Kite Runner by Khalid Hosseini, I think is how his name is pronounced. Maybe not, I don't know. Some people wanted it banned because they felt it promoted Islam.
Oh, okay.
So it's also terrible. Can't have that.
Have that.
A lot of challenges cite books as being anti-Christian, anti-American, anti-family, which is a code word for doesn't conform to the nuclear family setup.
Yeah.
A lot of times groups will try to get books banned because they say that they encourage rebelliousness. Mm-hmm. Right? A code word for free thought.
Free thought, yep.
And then our third category is an interesting one. Our third category is when the book is by and or about people of color, people whose sexualities or gender identities don't match the heterosexual cisgender norm. Mm-hmm. This one can be a little trickier to spot because groups often won't say, for example, well, I don't like the color purple because it was written by a black woman and it's about black women. Instead, they'll say, oh, it has offensive language.
Right.
Right. Side note to that, though, that is not usually the case for LGBT books.
No, they'll just say that
usually the groups then have no problem just saying, yeah, we want it banned because it has gay people in it.
Right.
But I digress. If you kind of look at which books are frequently challenged, which books are frequently banned, the majority of them are by or about people who are minorities, right? People whose stories disrupt the status quo. Mm-hmm. They disrupt the dominant narrative about who people of color are, who gay people are, who transgender people are. Mm-hmm. They're stories that tell the truth.
Yeah.
Not everyone can handle that.
It's famously stated by Jack Nicholson.
So I have some homework for you guys. This is the first time we've had homework in a while.
It's been a while, yeah.
Yeah.
Their homework before us has been watching a million Harry Potter movies. So.
It does feel kind of weird not to be talking about Harry Potter.
Yeah.
So your homework, I want to challenge you guys to read a banned book.
There you go.
And even, maybe especially if you aren't typically a reader.
Yeah.
A banned book contains something that somebody doesn't want you to know. So I would encourage you to find your inner rebel and tell those people to fuck off.
There you go.
Read a banned book. I'm going to post on our social media accounts a list of some of my personal favorite frequently challenged books. So if you aren't sure where to start, maybe you can draw some inspiration from that. Mm-hmm. And I would also really love to hear from you guys about what banned books are your favorites. And if we have any listeners outside of America, if you guys have events that are similar to Banned Books Week, I'd love to hear about that as well.
Yeah, and I think that could be interesting too because there's, if we have listeners in certain areas where the government isn't quite as, I'm trying to find the right word for it. I mean, generally speaking, it's pretty tough to get books banned in America.
Yeah.
In general. Obviously in certain small areas.
Right, and
school libraries, some books, that sort of thing. But in general, if you're in America, it's not too hard. And now with the internet, I assume this probably stretches to most places. Obviously, certain places like China and stuff have controlled internet, but would make it slightly more difficult. But that being said, I think it would be interesting to hear the perspective of somebody who lives under, say, a really conservative government of some sort that does tend to censor a lot more media than we experience in America. And also, if you want an easy A for or an easy completion for your homework, Where the Wild Things Are, it's about as short and as simple of a banned book read that there is.
That's true.
10 sentences, I believe, is what it is. So
it's about a 45-second read, unless you're really looking at the pictures. Speaking of Where the Wild Things Are,
we going to get into why it was banned in your...
Yes,
okay,
we're going
cool.
to talk
Because I wanted to make sure cool. Then let's move on to facts about Where the Wild Things Are, the book.
I didn't want to wake you up, but I really want to show you something.
So Where the Wild Things Are, written and illustrated by Maurice Sendak, published in 1963. It won the Caldecott Medal in 1964. The Caldecott, for anyone who doesn't know, is an award that celebrates the most distinguished American picture book for children. It's kind of like the Pulitzer for picture books. It's a big deal.
Yeah, and you see it when I remember being in the library as a kid and seeing them on the covers of,
Where the Wild Things Are has also been voted the #1 picture book by school library journal readers as recently as 2012. So it's had a lot of staying power. A lot of people like it a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of the most popular, I would imagine, of all time children's picture books.
So when Sendak began working on the book, the concept was more or less the same, except that Max, the little kid, was originally supposed to go to the land of wild horses. However, before he could get very far on that concept, Sendak realized that he didn't really know how to draw horses.
Oh, there you go. Just draw a weird bear man thing.
So he reconceptualized, changed it to the much more ambiguous wild things. And speaking of wild things, that specific term was inspired by a Yiddish expression that I'm probably about to butcher. Vildachea. I couldn't find a satisfactory pronunciation online, so I'm guessing. Literally translated, it means wild beasts, and it's often used to refer to boisterous children. So it's kind of a perfect expression for this.
Yeah. What was the language?
Yiddish.
It's probably not Che. It's probably Vildachaya.
Vildachaya?
Chaya. Would be my guess if it's Yiddish. Something like that would be my guess.
So
Yiddish.
if we have any listeners who know Yiddish, please correct us on this count.
Yeah, would be my because I think CH is only
That's fair. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think.
The drawings of the wild things themselves, this is one of my favorite things that I found out while I was doing research for this. The drawings started out as caricatures of Sendak's aunts and uncles, based on the way that he saw them as a small child. He later described them as all crazy faces and wild eyes with blood-stained eyes and big and yellow teeth.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. Aside from the film version that we're going to watch, Where the Wild Things Are has also been adapted as a children's opera, which I thought was interesting. I didn't know that there was specifically children's opera.
I guess that makes sense because I could see taking kids on a field trip to the symphony, and seeing an opera made for kids about creatures and stuff. Yeah, that could be interesting. I didn't know that was a thing though.
I bet productions of it are pretty cool.
Yeah, that would be neat.
Yeah. So part of the reason that I picked this particular book for our Harry Potter break is because it's a picture book, therefore very short.
Very short.
But I also picked it because this is our Banned Books Week series, and Where the Wild Things Are has been challenged. Now, it hasn't been challenged as frequently as another of Sendak's picture books, In the Night Kitchen, but it still has been challenged. So Maurice Sendak was a gay Jewish man. So as we discussed earlier, he kind of automatically has a voice that some people don't think should be heard.
Yep.
So there's that. Wild Things has also been challenged for featuring witchcraft and supernatural elements. It's got monsters in it.
There are monsters in it. Yeah,
there are.
I'm sure I'll say it here. I'm sure I've read this at some point in my childhood, but I don't remember anything of it other than the cover and what the creatures look like. But that's all. So.
But a lot of challenges have also labeled the book unsuited to age group. So this is a phrase that book banners toss around a lot. It's nice and vague.
Yeah.
And it has this condescending, this is for your own good attached to it, which is typically the case.
Yeah.
But here are kind of my thoughts on that. This is a book that acknowledges darkness. It acknowledges that children have feelings that aren't nice and aren't sweet. They feel anger and they feel frustration and they feel fear. And this book does scare people. It just turns out that most of those people are grown-ups.
Yeah. Well, I also have something along those lines about not suitable for this age group and as it pertains to the movie. So let's get on to the fun facts about Where the Wild Things Are, the film. it's a 2009 film directed by Spike Jonze, which is an interesting choice because Spike Jonze is most known for, and the only movie of his I've seen in its entirety. He hasn't directed a ton. I think it's like 5 or 6 at this point. Mm-hmm. But the one I know I've seen all the way through, but it's been years, is Being John Malkovich, which is a very strange film.
I've never seen that.
But he also directed Adaptation, which is the Nicolas Cage film about a screenwriter adapting a book of a book of some sort. We need to watch that at some point.
Sounds very meta.
Yeah, yeah. All of this stuff is because Being John Malkovich is a movie. It's been so long since I've seen it, but it has the actor John Malkovich in it, playing himself. And it's like inside, there's like this weird thing where like go in his head. And all of Spike Jonze stuff is very strange.
Okay.
Very kind of out there. But also, he wrote and directed and was involved in the production of all of the Jackass movies. So that's...
It does make him a kind of an odd choice, doesn't it?
And then he, most recently he did the film Her with Joaquin Phoenix, where he like falls in love with a computer or a computer.
Oh yeah, I kind of remember when that.
I haven't seen that one either, but I've heard it's very good. So he directed it again, kind of an interesting choice, but we'll see how it goes. And it was co-written by Spike Jonze and Dave Eggers, who's probably most known for writing the film Away We Go, which was a John Krasinski, Maya Rudolph. I think it was Maya Rudolph film from like 2008 or so about they're like a young couple that finds out they're going to have a kid. And it's kind of like an indie drama comedy thing, like an indie art film about like dealing with life, basically. I saw it probably a year or two after it came out and remember thinking it was pretty good. So adaptation of this film was kind of kicked around as early as the 80s by Disney, and they were going to adapt it and blend like traditional animated characters with like computer CG environments, so it would be like a mixture of kind of animation styles, but it would still be all animated, basically. Just
interesting
as traditional animation versus computer animation. Didn't end up going anywhere. Didn't go past the test filming to see how this would work, so it just kind of died out and petered out. And then after years of interest from various producers, Maurice Sendak decided he favored Spike Jonze to direct it. So he put his seal of approval on Spike Jonze and said he was young, interesting, and has a spark that none of the others had. Which he is. I guess he was young at the time. He is interesting, and he has a very strange spark. So I will give him that. In 2005, Spike Jonze and Dave Eggers completed a 111-page screenplay, which obviously expanded from the original 10-sentence story. So they had to extrapolate quite a bit.
It would be a pretty short movie if they didn't add to it.
Yeah. The makeup for the film was done by Howard Berger, who's he's an Academy Award-winning makeup producer, but he's our makeup effects artist. But he's all... He's he's not most known for this. This is what it said on Wikipedia. And then I clicked on him and looked. I'm like, oh, yeah, no, he said he was most known for Chronicles of Narnia. Like, this man has worked on everything, ever. Like, he has like 180 credits and he's worked on everything. Like, he's an icon of the industry. He'd been on Face Off a handful of times as like a guest judge or whatever and stuff. But he turned down the offer. They wanted him. He turned it down 4 times. And apparently the book inspired him to go into special effects as a child, but he felt filming it was a horrible idea, and he didn't want to be involved in the process of making the film.
So, like, on principle, he refused
he was
to
like,
be
you shouldn't make this into a movie. So ultimately, Jim Henson's Creature Shop provided the animatronic suits for the movie. So as you mentioned with the not suitable for age, the Warner Brothers, the production company, had a lot of, in the early stages of the post-production when they started seeing cuts of it, had a lot of fears about the film, saying, this isn't a family film, it's not family friendly, it's going to scare kids. And Spike Jonze and Maurice Sendak were both like, no.
Kids are so much hardier than people think.
Yeah, and they were like, nope, it's fine. You're dumb. And then finally, Maurice Sendak, who died a couple years after the film came out, I think 2012.
Yeah, he died in 2012.
But he said after seeing a completed cut of the film, I've never seen a movie that looked or felt like this, and it's Spike Jonze' personal this, and he's not afraid of himself. He's a real artist that lets it come through in the work, so he's touched me. He's touched me very much. So apparently he approved of the film and was very happy with.
So author stamp of approval, that's kind of a cool thing. It's not something that we always have on this show.
No, and it's one thing, I think it's interesting with this, as long as when you're doing adapting such a short story, as long as you sort of capture the main point, you can kind of do a lot of
the essence of it.
the essence of what, especially with a storybook like this, there's a main essence of what you're trying to get. If you capture that, you can do a lot of other stuff. I feel like that, because obviously the author's going to understand that their 10 sentence story isn't going to make a movie, so they're going to add a bunch of stuff as long as they capture and really get across the message you were trying to get across with your 10-page story and do it over the course of a film and kind of stay true to your vision. I feel like there's probably more leeway potentially with kids' books. Anyways, that's all I had for movie facts. Not a ton. I'm interested to watch this movie because I remember seeing the trailer and thinking it looked really interesting. I've never seen it.
Yeah, I've never seen it either, and I'm excited because it does look interesting.
It looks really unique, and I'm even more interested now. This will actually be the first Spike Jonze film I've seen that I'll remember, because I've seen Being John Malkovich, but I think I was 15 or something, and I just don't remember anything about it. Also, it'll be the first time we've done a story this short.
Yeah.
I mean, we did The Amazing Journey, which is not remotely this short.
We did Shrek. Which was a picture book, but this is even shorter than that.
Yeah, cool. All right, well, that's the next episode, Where the Wild Things Are, coming next week. And then after that, we're back into Harry Potter with Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Until next time, guys, gals, non-binary, and everybody else, keep reading books, keep watching movies, and keep being awesome. Keep reading banned books.